All right, folks, so that about wraps it all up. It is now almost the end of April, and as of a few weeks ago, we have finally shipped out all of our PV boards to our Kickstarter backers and our pre-orders as well. I know I've said this a few times in some previous videos, but we really weren't expecting such a big turnout for our Kickstarter. Matt and I, when we were initially talking about how many boards we'd like to sell, we thought, maybe 100 would be a good number. 100 makes it sort of worthwhile sending out a manufacturing run for our board design. Leaves us with some, and maybe some other people might be interested as well. We certainly weren't expecting to 5x that amount, so almost 600 boards. Well, it's about 514 for the Kickstarter, but we ordered, I think, 570 all up. So we'd have some extras, some in case there were failures that we couldn't end up using, and some for ourselves as well. So a much bigger manufacturing run than we initially expected. So thanks a lot to everyone who supported us, and not just the people who supported us directly on Kickstarter, but everyone who gave their feedback and provided us some support with our project. We really appreciate that. I'm not sure if I mentioned in the previous videos, but because we had such a large turnout, we were able to do a few things that we hadn't initially planned on doing. The main one was doing an additional prototype run. So the board we launched the Kickstarter with was, I think, a Rev B, and we were going to go from that Rev B to Rev C, make some little changes in the final production run. But because we had such a large turnout, we wanted to do an additional prototype run just to make sure that there was nothing else that might be an issue. So we ordered another 20 boards of the Rev C. There weren't any really major issues. There were a few things that we ended up changing. So this is Rev C, and then we ended up shipping Rev D, which is on here. So we fixed up some of the silk screens. We changed this connector here, which didn't really matter too much. I don't think too many people were going to use the external temperature sensor, and we made some slight modifications just to improve performance. And we wouldn't have done that if we didn't have the extra support to make that worthwhile. We also bought a bunch of test equipment, not just the test rigs and tester, but also power supplies, batteries, solar panels. I'm now surrounded by solar panels everywhere, testing them out, not just for the Kickstarter, but for projects as well. So if you saw the previous few videos, you would have seen me and Matt talking about our test procedure with our test rig and test PCB, going through how we'd automate the testing and programming of almost 600 PCBs. So as a part of that, Matt also designed an additional tester PCB that would automate the whole test procedure, testing the voltages, testing the components, testing some of the functionality, as well as programming the boards. And I'd now like to take this time to thank our PCB sponsor Avon, who manufactured and assembled our PV tester PCB. We use this test PCB as a part of our test rig when testing and programming all of our PV for this project. You can simply go on their website and upload your Gerber files and be presented straight away with a quote for your number of boards. If you want Avon to also assemble, you can place a PCBA order, put in your details, add it to cart, and link your PCB Gerber files before uploading your BOM and pick and place files. The quality was great, and we had no issues, and the tester board worked great for our needs. So thanks again for Avon for being our PCB sponsor and supporting this project. Back to the video. There were a lot of questions and comments about that whole procedure, not just on the YouTube, but some of the other socials as well. I think the main two questions people had was, why don't you just get the manufacturer to do it? And why do it at all? Why not just send out the boards and just hope for the best? If some fail, then you can just replace them. Is the additional cost of testing actually worth it? And you can just, replace a board here and there. On the first point, we did talk about that in the videos, that you can get the manufacturer of the actual PCB and assembler to integrate the testing and programming into the actual production pipeline. But there are additional costs to that. You need to provide them with the test bed, the test platform, the test firmware, as well as the firmware of the board. And that sort of additional costs for a mid to small batch run that we had wasn't really worth it. Being able to do the testing and programming in-house gave us a lot more control over what we did and what we were looking to do, and it really wouldn't be worth it until we had much higher product runs into the thousands, which I'm not sure we're going to have anytime soon, but who knows. On to the second point of why do the testing at all. Again, we kind of talked about that in those videos. Sure, you could send out the boards and sort of hope for the best, but that sort of logic sort of assumes you already know what the failure rate of your boards are if you're just going to cover the replacements and not spend the extra money on doing the testing yourself. But really, doing the testing, even if we're doing it ourselves, only adds a couple of dollars to the overall cost. And sending out the board, the shipping costs, the additional product cost is like worth dozens of board testing minutes or hours or however long it takes. It only takes about 30 seconds to do the testing and programming ourselves. But even if you want to go down that route, like I said, it assumes you know what the failure rate is, and every manufacturing run is going to be slightly different. Slight differences in the PCB manufacturing, slight differences in the assembly, slight differences in the components from the manufacturer as well. So you don't know what it's going to be until you actually do the test. You can do sort of small scale testing of the boards to try and work out what the issues are, but until you produce at a large scale and test at a large scale, some tiny little things that you can easily fix in the design don't really show up until you do that sort of large scale testing. You also really don't want to discover failure modes when the board's in the customer's hand out in the field. You want to be on top of any issues that might arise. And it's really just not a good look if you're sending out a product and it's failing out in the field. And it's really a short-term mindset to not bother with testing and just send out whatever and hope for the best and replace them if there's any issues. There really wasn't anything like this on the market, and there still isn't, but Matt and I don't really have any delusions. We know that this board could easily be copied. Someone could come along and easily just rip this and copy it. And so things like better firmware, better testing, better process, the tutorial videos, the user manual, all adds up to making a better product, better user experience for the end customer. We're really interested in the long term, building a reputation, because as I'll talk about in a moment, this is not going to be our final product, hopefully. So as I kind of mentioned at the start, we had pre-orders that we included in the Kickstarter batch. So they got PVPis at the same time, almost as the Kickstarters. And we did have some left over at the end that we ended up putting up on the online store. It was almost 20 boards and they basically sold out within 12 hours. I didn't even have time to make a post about it. They sold out so quickly. We're going to have some additional boards available in the next few weeks. You can join the waitlist on the AutoEcology store if you want, but there's quite a lot of people on there, so they'll probably sell out pretty quickly. What we're probably going to do in the future is do another pre-order run. So we'll have pre-orders open for like a month, and then we'll collect those, and then we'll put a manufacturing order in, get the boards and do the whole process over again. We really don't have the capital at this stage to be placing large manufacturing orders ourselves, so the pre-orders really help with that. We'll order some extra boards as well and sell them afterwards, but the pre-orders get theirs first. We're kind of waiting to get more feedback on the PVPi for those who do have it. I think most people have got it. I know there's some places in Europe that I think it's taken a bit longer to get through customs. Everywhere in Australia and New Zealand, most of the US and Canada have got it, but we're sort of just waiting for people to test it out. We've already done our own extensive testing, week-long, month-long testing, and there's no issues, so we're not expecting any major issues to arise, but we just like to get it into the hands of a bunch more people to see what they have to say. We know it's not perfect. We know there's a few little things that we would have liked to add or change, but we ran out of time, it was too expensive, or there just wasn't the real estate on the board left to add anything extra. So those little things we kind of expect might turn up, but we're not too worried about those. At this stage, we don't really have any plans to do like a Rev 2 of the PVPi or a different PVPi version. For all the things that we wanted it to do, pretty much does all that. We wanted it to be able to power Raspberry Pi out in the field in remote locations, not just provide solid battery charging, but a bunch of the support around that. And we're pretty proud and pretty happy with how it turned out. Not just the hardware, but the firmware, the software, the user manuals and everything as well. On that, we've actually created another YouTube channel for AutoEcology, which is where we've been posting all the tutorial videos for how to set up and use the PVPi. We did that because I didn't want to crowd this channel with all that sort of product information. I'm going to sort of create a separation there between product information, product tutorials, and some of the projects that I'm working on, because there's going to be more people than just me working with AutoEcology in the future. You've already seen Matt, but hopefully we'll have some more help in the future as well. Just because we might not be doing another version of the PVPi doesn't mean we're not looking to create additional devices. I've got Matt going down the rabbit hole now of ecology technology that I've been going down for the last few years, and looking at all the technology and all the devices that are out there, and looking at the ways in which we could do things better, improve things, make things more accessible, make things cheaper. We're really excited about that, and your support really helps us with a lot of that. We have had a lot of recommendations and suggestions about things we could make, but through AutoEcology, we're kind of really focused on ecological, environmental monitoring technologies. And that's really what we had in mind when we developed the PVPi. Of course, it has a range of applications, a whole bunch of different situations in which you could use it, but our main focus is on that sort of field. So if you are interested in that, you can go and follow AutoEcology. I will, of course, post updates on what we're doing with that on this channel as well, but a lot of the in-depth videos, like the tutorials, the product information ones, are going to be over on that channel as well. So I'm leaving this channel for my own projects, which I haven't really been working on because the PVPi has been taking up so much of my time. A lot of my future project videos, in fact, use the PVPi because, again, we developed it because we had needs that we didn't see any products available on the market, and we knew that a lot of other people had similar issues, so we developed that to fulfill our own requirements. And I believe it's opened the door for a huge range of applications that you'll see through some of my future project videos as well. All right, so that was just a quick update as to what we've been doing, where we're at, and what I'm planning to do in the future. So thanks again for everyone's support. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.